Hi, today I'm going to read you a story. It's a Hopi legend. It's from this book called On the Trail Made of Dawn, Native American Creation Stories. I'm reading the Hopi tale because my friend Phil, who's a Hopi artist, was going to come into our classroom and share his art and his culture and food and some stories. And since that can't happen now, I'm going to create a YouTube where I can show some of his art and tell some of those stories that he would have shared with you and read you a book that he gave me last time he was in our classroom. But for now, I'm going to read a story called Origin of the Wind. During the time of our great-grandfathers, Wind God blew his mighty breath over Mother Earth. Trees bent before his great power, and the world trembled. Animals hid in their dens, and birds stayed in their nests. Woo, howled Wind God day after day. Woo, wailed Wind God night after night. One day the two warrior gods, both of them named Little Fellow, walked up a hillside to visit Grandmother Spider. Woo, cried Wind God. He tugged at their hair, he tugged at their clothes, he tugged at their feet. Then he took a deep breath and blew them back down the hill. Ow, howled Little Fellow. Ow, howled Little Fellow. Woo, laughed Wind God. We must stop Wind God, cried Little Fellow. How? Asked Little Fellow. We can't see him, we can't touch him. How can we stop him? We will ask Grandmother Spider. Back up the hill crawled the two little fellows and into Grandmother Spider's house. Grandmother Spider was busy cooking cornmeal mush. Grandmother, cried Little Fellow, rubbing the bumps on his sore arms. Wind God is after us. Grandmother, cried Little Fellow, rubbing the bruises on his sore legs. How can we stop Wind God from hurting us? You must do as I say, said Grandmother Spider. She scooped up some of the cornmeal, wrapped it in a pouch, and gave it to the little fellows. She pointed to a distant mountain far off in the land of the setting sun. Take this pouch of cornmeal to the big crack in Black Rock, deep inside Sunset Mountain. There you'll find the home of Wind God. Off went the little fellows toward Sunset Mountain, carrying a pouch of cornmeal mush. Day after day they walked, pushing against Wind God's breath. Night after night they walked, pushing against Wind God's power. On the fourth day they came to the foot of Sunset Mountain. Woo, howled Wind God through the crack in the Black Rock. Go away. He took a deep breath and blew, sending the little fellows tumbling across the land. Back crawled the little fellows on their hands and knees back to the foot of Sunset Mountain. Woo, laughed Wind God, blowing harder and harder. The little fellows got down on their stomachs. They wiggled up the crack in the Black Rock. There they took out Grandmother Spider's sticky cornmeal mush and stuffed it into the crack. And the wind stopped. Woo, blew Wind God against the rock. But the cornmeal mush had sealed Wind God's door shut. Woo, he blew harder and harder. The door held fast. A quiet peace spread over Mother Earth. Nothing stirred. Not a blade of grass, not a leaf, not even a grain of sand. Out came the animals from their dens. Overhead, birds filled the air with song. Back from Sunset Mountain came the little fellows, laughing and dancing. Father Sun smiled down upon Mother Earth. Day after day he smiled. The land turned hotter and hotter. There was no wind to cool the air. There were no clouds to hide the sun. There were only waves and waves of shimmering heat dancing across the land. The corn in the fields turned brown and the rivers dried up. The animals complained of the heat and returned to their dens. The birds complained of the heat and flew back to their nests. The little fellows complained of the heat and hid behind Black Rock. The hot sand burns my feet, they cried. This heat is worse than the wind, said Little Fellow. We must make peace with Wind God, said Little Fellow. Back to Sunset Mountain went the little fellows. There they removed a tiny speck of cornmeal mush from the crack in the Black Rock. They left a hole just big enough for Wind God to breathe through, but not enough for his big, cruel breath to escape. Out of the hole came a cool breeze. Clouds appeared in the western sky. Over the land they floated, over the nests of birds and over the dens of animals. The corn in the fields stood tall. The rivers danced along the rocks. And that is why today only gentle breezes cross the land of the Hopi. And there's a little part about the Hopi. The name Hopi is a shortening of the word Hopi too, meaning peaceful ones. Like the present-day Hopi, these forebears made their home in the dry deserts of northeastern Arizona. In spite of the heat and lack of rain, they survived comfortably on high barren mesas or tablelands. A Hopi community lived in stone or adobe cliff-like dwellings or villages unique to this country. These pueblos were complex structures attached wall to wall with one another, with additional buildings on top. They did not have doors, and people entered through an opening in the roof and climbed down on notched logs. A series of ladders provided access to the upper houses. Men provided the building material, but the women shaped them into houses. One of these pueblos, Oribe, is the oldest continuous inhabited village in the United States. In spite of the dry desert climate, the Hopi were excellent farmers. Women owned the houses and crops, and their most important crop was corn. They also raised squash, pumpkins, gourd, several kinds of beans, cotton, and tobacco. They gathered roots, leaves, berries, nuts, seeds, and wild onion. They domesticated turkeys, and the men were skillful hunters of deer, antelope, squirrels, rabbits, and other small game. They used the bones for tools, and their sinew for bowstrings. The Hopi made clothing and moccasins from cotton and animal hide. The men wore short tunics, moccasins, and leggings of cotton or hide. Women wore knee-length dresses that hung from their shoulders. Both men and women wore hair fringed on the sides, and unmarried girls wore their hair in elaborate twists called squash blossoms over their ears. They also wore ornaments of shells, beads, and turquoise. The Hopi were expert silversmiths, weavers, potters, and basket makers for a long time. Their religion was often referred to as the Hopi way, viewing everything in relationship with everything else. Birds and animals, as well as people, were all connected. They believed that Grandmother Spider and Tawa, the sky god, created the earth. Grandmother Spider then divided people into clans and sent them to live in different places. Guardian spirits, called kachinas, came to help the Hopi clans. They taught the people how to hunt and plant crops, how to gather firewood, and how to perform the ceremonies that would keep them in harmony with these spirits. Hopi children learned the traditions of their people through kachinas. And that's all for today. But I look forward to seeing you, or you seeing me, next time on YouTube. Until next time, I wish you well, and send lots of love.